So ISCA is the African Institute for Supply Chain Research. And before we start, I would like to formally acknowledge the leadership of ISCA. Especially, I would like to recognize Professor Ambe, who is the president and founder of ISCA, and the board of directors for their tireless commitment to advancing supply chain profession across the continent. Thank you to the leadership for the vision and for creating this platform for us to exchange these critical insights. So I just want to ask Ghislaine if you can please bring up that slide with the board of directors. It's our newly appointed board. Yes, so this is our new ISCA board, newly appointed, as I've indicated. Thank you for showing them the love. And maybe I just want to give a shout out to Prof. Mayer. I saw Prof. Mayer is in the audience, and thanks for joining us. He always supports the work. And as I see other guests on the chat, I will make mention of them. You are all welcome, and we are happy and excited to have you in this session. So now moving on to the business of the day, we've all heard the buzzwords AI, big data, machine learning, and for many of us, especially in leadership and operations, the lingering question is how do we go past the hype, to move the needle on our bottom line? And how do you implement this and practically, in your work environment? And today we're not just talking about the algorithms, we are talking about strategic advantage, how do we utilize AI and technology, to advance the supply chain profession. So today's webinar, as you all know, it's titled AI, Data and Analytics in Supply Chain, moving from forecasting to the strategic advantage, as I've mentioned. And this session will examine how artificial intelligence, data infrastructure, and advanced analytics are reshaping supply chain decision making, moving organizations beyond predictive forecasting towards strategic advantage in institutional learning and long-term resilience. So as firms and governments confront increasing uncertainty, digital acceleration, and geopolitical fragmentation, the ability to translate the data into strategic and institutional capability has become a defining leadership challenge. And I think we've all seen it with the COVID-19 and all the other black swan events that have impacted our supply chain across the globe. So today we want to strip away the technical jargon and give you like a practical roadmap for modernizing your procurement and supply chain. And joining us to do this, to break down the strategies, is a distinguished panel of experts who are at the forefront of the industry. So I am going to introduce the panelists. I think most of you have seen me as one of the speakers, but I will be facilitating the session for today. And I must say that we did share the bios when we advertising this webinar, but I don't think the bios do justice, to the kind of the caliber of speakers that we have in our midst today. So we have Dr. Donovan Wright, who is an adjunct professor for Capital Technology University. He's also a data scientist with Peraton, a retired U.S. military officer with 24 years of service. He is an accomplished professional educator and innovator with over 25 years of experience in STEAM, in the federal government, Department of Defense, and in academia. He is experienced in federal government, DoD, as I mentioned, data governance, artificial intelligence, digital modernization, digital transformation, cyber and cybersecurity, information technology. He's implemented a number of ICT projects and It's also personnel management and aviation maintenance as it relates to planning, execution, enforcement of policies and procedures for government operations. Dr. Wright possesses extensive knowledge in DoD doctrine, operations, and missions within the continental US and international arena. He holds two doctoral degrees, the first one in education um, and another one in artificial intelligence program with the Capital Technology University. I would just like to ask Dr. Wright to please switch on your camera so that the participants can see you, and please show him some love. Thank you. I'm seeing people are clapping hands. If you can please switch on so the audience can see you before I move on to Dr. Madhu. Okay, thank you. If you can please move on, Ghislaine, our next speaker is Dr. Madhu. Dr. Madhu is the Director General of African Center of Supply Chain and also a president of Association of Outsourcing Professionals. He is an adjunct professor of Malaysia University of Science and Technology. He holds a doctorate in business administration from SMC University in Switzerland. He was a recipient of the 2014 National Productivity Order of Merit Award, NPOM, from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Please give him a round of applause for that. This is the highest honor. He has over 36 years of working experience with international corporate exposure in exports, import trade, customs and maritime, as well as transport and logistics and supply chain management. He is a fellow for several institutes. He was part of the first export set up by the bank, by a bank in Nigeria. And since he left banking to set up and pioneer the export house in Nigeria. And I think what I found fascinating is he is affectionately also known as Mr. Export, but we'll call him Dr. Export. He has also authored over seven published books. Please give him a round of applause and show him some love as we move on to the introduction of our next speaker, who is Rosalind Opel. Rosalind Opel is an international procurement and public procurement expert with over 25 years of experience across Africa and the Caribbean. She's a former head of pooled procurement at Organization of Eastern Caribbean Estate, and actually she specializes in pooled procurement, has extensive experience in that area. She's committed to ethical leadership and leveraging AI, data, and agile risk management to transform supply chains in small and developing economies into strategic, resilient systems while championing procurement, professionalization, centers of excellence, strategic partnerships, and pipelines for future procurement professionals. Please also give her a round of applause and show her some love. I think you can see that we've got a powerhouse, of speakers today on the lineup. So let's now get on with the business of the day. And before I hand over to our first speaker, I just want to take you through the session logistics and pointers, right? So all questions. So if you've got so I will hand over to our three speakers to present. And if you have questions as they are presenting, please do post them on the chat box. So we will answer the questions at the end of the presentation, the entire presentation. And make sure that your microphones are muted all the time and your webcams are off. Unfortunately, I battled to switch on mine, and apologies for that. The link of the recording and the slides will be shared to all the participants. Okay, so now let's move on to the first presentation. So to kick off the discussion, we will start off with Dr. Wright's presentation, which will be focusing on digital transformation and data integrity. So, Dr. Wright, you've often advocated that true digital transformation requires fully embracing the people, process, technology, and data framework. And I think the most famous framework it's the one where you looked the one that looks at people, process, and technology, and seeing data, integrated into this framework. It's quite fascinating, and we looking forward to seeing how you unpack the application of this framework in our different environments. So for many of the participants who are navigating their own modernization journeys, this naturally raises a critical question, right? To say, how do leaders move beyond simply just adopting all these new technologies, new systems, and begin to shift towards an intelligence-driven supply chain? How do we do that, and what's the practical way of doing that? So I know that you've prepared some slides. Please walk us through the topic. Dr. Wright, I'll now hand over to you.
Very much, Dr. Citino, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody out there. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so bear with me. As Dr. Citino said a while ago, we're at a pivotal point where we're realizing that supply chain and the movement of global supply chain is critical. Africa, I believe, strongly believe, is going to be a key and a central focal point for supply chain and goods and supplies throughout the world as we move forward. Could you go back to the first slide? Yes. So what I'll try to do here is I'm going to walk you, these are the focal areas that I'm going to walk you through. I want you to bear something in mind as we walk through these focus areas. Picture a four-legged stool with, Dr. Citino said, people, process, technology. I developed a new approach which I look at people, governance, data, and technology. Picture that four-legged stool with the one leg being people, one leg being governance, one leg being data, and then the fourth leg being technology. The seat, for whatever area or ecosystem you're responsible for, it's going to be, the seat is going to be called digital and supply chain transformation, because that is what you're going to need to bring technology and have technology become an enabler and not just a focal point. Next slide. The key I see as researchers, and I'll put my Inspector General hat on as I go through the slide. The key thing is we want to look at the root cause. What is the root cause of challenges or for adoption or whatever we're doing as we look at bringing in technology as an enabler? And I think the key thing is a lot of times organizations and individuals look at technology transformation in opposed to digital transformation. Technology transformation is good if it's you just bringing in technology for use in your home or it's just a one-off. Digital transformation, which looks at the people, governance, data, and technology perspective, has to be the way you approach it if you're going to look at enterprise or institutional transformation, or bringing technology into an institution or an enterprise environment. And you see here where, like I said, technology transformation is bringing in technology and focusing on technology. At the end of the day, technology is just one leg of that four-legged stool. And imagine if you take that one leg off, that stool will not be able to support whatever it needs to support. In terms here, it is supply chain, which is key and critical. Next slide. Here we look at enterprise and institutional versus institutional. Understanding this, I believe, is a key to the way forward, because what we have to understand and bring to the forefront is enterprise, which is the company level, the organization level, the operational and tactical level at all these different countries, while the institutional piece looks at countries, regulations and governance, and the people and the governance and the data and the technology perspective from a institutional or government higher level strategic standpoint. The key thing is, like I said, when we look at enterprise technology, we're looking at business, companies, organizations, and the enterprise level key level thinking is, how do we optimize our supply chain at that level? What technology should we buy? How do we improve efficiency? While at the institutional level, we have to look at the bigger, broader picture. What regional or country regulations or laws we need to address for the governance piece? How do we put the people perspective, the governance perspective, the data and the technology perspective into an operationalized way so that it's most efficient for us as an institution? The same applies for the PGDT framework for the enterprise. The key takeaway is understanding that within an enterprise or an institution, we can't have a siloed approach to how we look at anything. We can't have a siloed approach how we look at people. We can't have a siloed approach of how we look at data or governance or technology, because if it's not looked at as an holistic framework to build on, where every body within that ecosystem falls into that perspective, then we won't maximize and it won't be effective. Next slide. Let me take organizational capability, which to me means digital transformation or digital and supply chain transformation, because the only way you're going to get at true effective supply chain is through transformation, using digital transformation as the focal point. Using the people, governance, and data and technology framework, you look at the idea that you need the right stewards to identify the right stewards both at the enterprise level and at the institutional level. So all of these, the people, governance, and data and technology perspective needs to be looked at from both enterprise and institutional while you're working collaboratively to build them and bring them into one ecosystem, because these are two different type endeavors, but unless they're brought together under these guidelines and these frameworks, you won't have a cohesive ecosystem that effectively gets to digital transformation and supply chain transformation. Like I said, people, you look at stewards, leadership, the culture. There's a big cultural shift from as I said before, we're looking at technology, AI as a siloed approach instead of looking at the fact that you cannot adopt or implement AI unless you look at having the right people to have with the right knowledge, skills, and ability to apply and implement that framework. You have to have the right strategy, operational plan, tactical plan, policy, standards, procedures, and a compliance mechanism under governance to make sure that framework really gets applied and works effectively. You have to have a data strategy with data governance, data management, policy, standards, an ecosystem for data, and standardized data from all of the key players and stakeholders within that ecosystem for data to be meaningful and effective. Then you have to make sure that the technology that you're looking at is, you're looking at it holistically and you're looking at it from a use case perspective. Most times people look at AI like a high performance car engine. Oh, it's nice and shiny. Let me get that high performance car engine, bring it in. But you bring it in and you put it in the car, and the car doesn't have the wheels to allow that high performance engine to perform to its maximum effective level. It's the same thing. If we bring AI in and we don't have the framework, holistic framework across the board to shape it and have the infrastructure to support it, then it's just a nice, shiny, nice to have that doesn't do anything for us. So key here is any weakness in any of the people, governance, data, or technology legs under that stool will put us in a position where we won't get to digital or supply chain transformation. Next slide. Let's look at AI maturity stages for supply chain, because AI is a key enabler across the board. We all know that. But like I said before, if we're not looking at AI potentially by use case and in terms of what it brings to us as a holistic ecosystem, then we're looking at it right. But if we look at the stages, the foundational stages, which is where you find basic digitalization is occurring. We have a lot of manual process and limited data is siloed. Operational key here is it's a little bit more integrated. You have, key dashboards and all of that to provide you the information and insights you need, and data is a little bit more integrated. What we want to get at is the strategic, where you could get at predictive analytics and machine learning models, AI type enabling, based on you posturing the data and having the right technology that's going to help you to shape it at the strategic, so that this could be applied all the way down based on you having the right people, the right governance perspective, policy standards, so that operational and tactical levels can mirror that perspective and mirror that procedure as you move forward. What you ultimately want to get to is autonomy, where you have a system in place where, based on the efficiencies of people, governance, data, and technology, you have, much like your car has a dashboard that provides you with the information and insight that key leaders can make decisions at the strategic, operational, or the tactical level. Key here is most organizations currently in Africa, when I did the research and I dug deep into it, are at the stage 1 or stage 2, which means there's work that's needed to get to strategic and the transformational stages. Next slide. Governance as we all, as we shape it out and as we have talked about, is critical. People understanding with the right knowledge, skills, and ability, and having the right governance structure in place is critical to the foundation that we need to have to build out to this enterprise and this institutional ecosystem. Remember, that is the focal point here. Enterprise and institutional ecosystems need those approaches to be intact in order for you to see effectiveness. We look here at regulatory framework from the strategic, or let's look at it from the enterprise companies, individual countries. Then we look at it from the institutional. We look at it from the regional to global type regulatory frameworks. That those have to be looked at. Multi-stakeholder governance. This is key and paramount that we must understand this, because when you look at enterprise, there are multi-tiered stakeholders at that level, much less when you bring in the institutional, and then when you combine them, because the total supply chain ecosystem for Africa, as we reach out to meet the global setting, have multi-tiered stakeholders that we need to make sure that we are addressing governance in that perspective. There must be transparency and accountability throughout the process, and so in other words, there must be some compliance mechanism put in place to make sure there are checks and balances. This will allow for capacity building and total monitoring, giving you that dashboard effect. Just like your car, I sit in my car, I don't have to go around and check the 4 tires, because I have that dashboard based on the data and the technology allowing me and enabling that dashboard so that I could look at capacity building and monitoring. Next slide. Demand sensing and scenario modeling. We optimize by the idea that you're seeing real time, by demand sensing real time, the benefits of information at your right in front of your face, just like you would sit in your car and you see the dashboard and it's telling you what is the true picture of the vehicle. The same thing with scenario modeling. You're modeling your scenario, your environment, so that you could see what your infrastructure looks like and then be able to make key decisions. The challenging thing is, like we all know, is fragmented infrastructure, cross-border complexities and all of that, which we need to bring in as we build the enterprise and in the institutional ecosystem. Next slide. Here we see the potential for digital twins and automated, and not only automated, but autonomous decision systems. For digital twins, we have that capacity for real-time asset tracking, monitoring, predictive maintenance and failure prevention, routine optimization, and capacity planning based on us being able to have that dashboard view of all our ecosystem. For automated and autonomous, this should have autonomous added to it, decision systems. We're able to make decisions based on the idea that we have, using the data and the technology, to be able to have information readily available to us in that dashboard, so we have an intelligent approach to making decisions. Next slide. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wright. I was just taking down, some key points which are going to lead us to the next presentation. And I just want to share with the audience, because these are some good key takeaways So we started by saying, in my intro, I said the framework focuses on the people, process, technology, and data. And I think your presentation went further, to demonstrate the importance of having the processes, the standards, the framework, and those AI maturity framework and the levels that you shared with us, and taking into consideration the entire ecosystem, so we don't implement this in silos. We need to have a holistic view of the ecosystem, which then now leads us to the next presentation, because we see now that technology is just the engine, right? But data is everything. Actually, I've read somewhere that data is they say it's a new gold, and then some of the people say data is the new fuel. So this is where you come in, Dr. Madu. We just with your experience of 4 decades of experience in strengthening the productivity of African supply chains and international trade. When we look at this, the PPDT framework, right? How does that apply to the African Continental Free Trade area? And specifically, how do we ensure that African firms are not just consumers of the global tools, but are using them to build the sensing capabilities needed to compete in the global space? So just want to give you the opportunity to take us through your presentation, show us how we are moving from reactive focusing to the proactive strategy and the application of this, in our African continent. Over to you, Dr. Madu.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everywhere, wherever you are. I don't know if you're hearing me properly, because from previous presentation, it's breaking at this end. I don't know if you are hearing me. Please, can you signify if you are hearing me so I can move on?
I can hear you loud and clear in the US.
Okay, thank you very much. A caveat to start with: I am not an AI. I run an arcade supply chain and trade, and I consult for a lot of SMEs who also have a lot to do with AI. So I'll be speaking for the SMEs and to the SMEs at the same time. I'll be looking at governance and institutions, the risks and ethics, and then lessons for everyone, for the leaders, for the SMEs themselves. Everyone has something to do if we want to make sure we will benefit from this AI race. I mean, today on social media, it's all AI everywhere, and people are getting confused. So next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so let's look at the strategic implications of AI-enabled forecasting. We all know that previously, before AI, forecasting was much, much tougher. In fact, it used to be historicals. It became better when companies started to use POS. Please go back to the other slide. Companies started to use point of sale information, and forecasting got better. But with AI forecasting, it has become a ride. It has become very interesting and good. So looking at this is particularly for African SMEs, reduction in inventory costs where AI forecasting is deployed, 15 to 35%. That's huge. Then 65% of Fortune 500 firms now use AI in demand planning and logistics optimization. That's also huge. So what has happened is that it has moved from reactive to predictive. Most companies have moved from reactive to predictive, where AI moves supply chain from event response to probabilistic anticipation. Right now, it is possible to anticipate what could happen, sensing disruptions before they cascade. Now, optimization to resilience beyond cost efficiency. Advanced analytics now targets adaptive capacity for companies. Now, also data silos to integrated intelligence, real-time data ecosystem. For every company to do well in supply chain today, data-based planning, data-based decision-making is what they have to do. So here is what it is. Yes, we've made a lot of progress with it, but the question is really how many of these SMEs are able to tap into this AI craze that we are now, or that other companies are making good money from. Please, next slide. Next slide. Thank you. So we need to move from operational optimization to institutional governance. And a lot of organizations, the SMEs themselves, government ministries, even continental organizations like AU may have to come in here. There are three phases to this, three phases. You have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. In phase 1 is operational AI. In phase 2 is strategic intelligence. Phase 3 is institutional governance. Each of these affects the SME's ability to utilize the AI. Let's go to operational AI. Route and load optimization. This is like basics. So many organizations have been able to take advantage of this. Then demand forecasting models. Many organizations, many SMEs are using AI for demand forecasting. Then automated warehouse systems. Well, not too many SMEs, but we can find a whole lot of warehouses that are automated. Then, of course, cost efficiency dashboards. This is very critical because logistics costs are quite critical. Then, this is where most African enterprises are operating at this primary stage. Let's move to the strategic intelligence in phase 2. Scenario modeling and risk sensing. Dr. Donova talked about it in his own slide. So this is moving forward from what the SMEs are currently planning to do, where you can model scenarios, you can sense risks even before they occur. Then the other thing is cross-enterprise data platforms. That is the strategic intelligence stage. But the question is, how many SMEs can afford to go here? Then supplier intelligence scoring. It moves further from ordinary supplier relationship management to scoring, in which case, in one score, it is possible to know everything about your supplier, from financial capacity to ESG to who they have dealt with before and everything you need to need in just one report. Then intelligent SOP with AI. SOP is what is saving most organizations that are into manufacturing these days. But with AI signals, it becomes a daily affair, no longer a monthly gathering or weekly gathering for meetings for S&OP. So these definitely are competitive differentiator for leading firms. Then the governance becomes an issue. The 2026 governance, AI governance that I saw has the US, the Europe, and then of course, China, mainly. Those are the people who are at the moment trying to make policies that will be a bit legal, because right now, so many of the things that are happening in the AI, you won't have anybody to hold responsible. So one thing that needs to be done by nations to start with is national infrastructure policy. Very, very important. Data infrastructure need to be built, otherwise you won't find the data you are looking for. Then, of course, regulatory AI audit frameworks. You need to build this framework to be able to audit what is going on with organizations, both the providers and the users. Then trade corridor intelligence system. This is very, very important. If you look at Africa, we have so many trade corridors, but most of them are non-functional. We are not getting the benefits that we should get from trade corridors like Lagos, Abidjan, Africa. We have trade corridors that are supposed to aid, of course, African Continental Free Trade Agreement needs these corridors to work. So we need to build them, or rather improve them. Workforce capability standards. In Africa, workforce capability standards are not aligned. They are scattered, but when we align them, then of course, the single market will work with ease. Next slide, please. Next slide. Risks, limitations, and ethical considerations in data-driven supply chains. Algorithm bias. Most of the algorithms that we're using are trained in the US or Europe. So obviously bias for our environment, leading to systematic flawed recommendations. Who do we hold responsible for that? Data sovereignty. We need to build data sovereignty. Dependence on foreign AI platforms. Export strategic supply chain intelligence from here. So if we need to guide our strategies, we need to build our own the data sovereignty. Then digital divide. AI adoption accelerates inequality between digitally capable firms and SMEs. This is so true, because as AI is advancing, the senior firms are moving faster, while it looks like the SMEs are marching backwards. So this is something to look at. Accountability gaps. When AI-driven decisions cause disruption, something like delayed shipments, failed forecast, who is responsible? Who do we hold responsible for that? Between humans and systems, it's still legally unresolved. That's why I said in the previous slide that national authorities will have to come in. Excessive reliance on AI optimization erodes institutional tacit knowledge and judgment. This is a dangerous one, because even our children now, in the office, some people can write letters again without contacting one AI or the other. And it's beginning to diminish the capabilities in organizations. Then workforce disruption. AI-driven logistics automation threatens the livelihoods of millions in Africa, freight and trade sector. It depends on who you are talking to. If you are talking to the owners of the company, they don't mind if it reduces the number, because it means that they will pay less. But if you are speaking to those who work in organizations, they will prefer to remain on their jobs. But it's neither here nor there. The fact is that the transition or reskilling infrastructure must be put in place so that we won't have too much disruptions. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Okay, Dr. Madu, this is the last slide.
Is it the last slide? Okay,
Yes.
so the question is no longer whether to adopt AI in supply chain. It is whether Africa will govern it or be governed by it. But let me point out a few things which I think they are like low-hanging fruits for SMEs in AI. Pulling data cooperatively, where SMEs can come together, pull data as a cooperative, and then use it. It's going to help them a lot. Then the other one is upskilling the teams within an organization or within the cooperative to be able to use the AI properly. The other one is managing risk proactively, ability to identify risks and then managing it proactively, not waiting when it has crashed your whole system before you do something about it. The other thing is starting small and shipping fast. When you want to get involved in a platform for AI, you want to try something small to see how it goes. Let me give an example. They're asking for monthly subscription and an annual subscription. Maybe a monthly subscription would be an easier way to go to check how beneficial it is. So the goal is to build AI sovereignty, not AI dependence. So I think that AI is quite beneficial. SMEs have a lot to benefit from it, but policies will have to come that will make adjustments so that the SMEs are not left far behind. While SMEs themselves should do everything they can, come together as cooperatives, that will help them move closer to the firms that are doing well. I think I want to stop there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Madu, for your presentation. I think this is a thought-provoking presentation. Took down some notes, and please give me a round of applause, colleagues. Took down some notes. I like how you summarized it at the end, and your emphasis on the role of SMMEs and how they can work together. So yeah, we're walking out of this session with the questions to say, how do we now train the machine learning models using the African data? Right? How do we now go back and make this more practical? How do we move from the operational AI to institutional governance? And how do we go and upskill ourselves? And I think you need to give yourselves a hands of applause because you are here. Pat yourself at the back. You are here. This is part of upskilling. We're upskilling by attending these webinars, taking lessons on how we can go and implement this in our environment. So moving on now to the next speaker, and you will see how this topic that Rosalind will be tackling intertwines to what Dr. Madu has just shared with us. Rosalind brings to us an of expertise of over years of experience managing and navigating complex procurement environments across Africa. And I did mention in the introduction that she also has vast experience on pooled procurement. So as we look at the theme of data governance and capacity gaps, many developing countries or economic struggle with the readiness factor. How ready are we and how do we upskill? So Rosalind, from your perspective, how can leaders, bridge the capacity gap to ensure that data governance isn't just a compliance hurdle, but a foundational tool for eliminating AI bias and ensuring ethical compliance in procurement analytics? So I would like to hand over to you to share with us use cases, where this has been implemented in Africa and across the globe. The floor is yours, Rosalind.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Rosalind Opel, and I'm going to take us through data governance and capacity gaps. I'm tackling this particular one based out of experience of participating in a couple of multilateral donor funding projects that have been trying to incorporate AI and data governance into the projects, and just to see how procurement can leverage and utilize AI into procurement. There has been an attempt that has been made But again, we still all together as a procurement professional must agree that we still have quite a long way to go and we need to get involved. So as we go along, we will see where we as professionals need to get in and make sure that AI is fully incorporated into procurement. So I'm going to look at the data governance and capacity gaps. How do we strengthen data governance for AI readiness? Analytics and its applications, the audits and donor compliance pressures, and just generally managing AI bias in ethical compliance. So some of the gaps, next slide. Some of the gaps that I'm going to speak about is the data silo, fragmentation of data across different ministries and private entities. What we realize, and I'm coming from a point of public procurement, because even the private sector, we do need to get information and data from the public sector for us to be able to develop some of the plans that we are developing, and also to be able to make sure that we are complying with business regulations. So whenever you go across any government entity or to look for data, you want to clear goods, you want to look at what, for example, if it's medicines, what's required, what are the documents that you need to be able to register a business. You find that you have to go through different ministries, or you have to go to different offices sitting in different ministries or different departments for you to get one document signed off. So that that itself is a gap that has made it a bit difficult for AI to be able to bring together all the information, and also to be able to have all information in one portal where you can click at a click of a button, you're able to get all the information that you want. There is also lack of harmonized frameworks, which leads to high compliance for cross-border data flow. As we know, after is trying to harmonize the data across Africa, but we also have to agree that at the moment, this has not been easy, and they've not been able to bring all that data together in the speed that recognizes how much AI and how much IT has developed. So there's a lot of data. There's a lot of frameworks that are not harmonized. When you go to one country, you operate on a different framework. When you go to another country, you operate on a different framework. While at the same time, we are expected to do cross-border trade and cross-border integration. Then there is also the issue of infrastructure, which is infrastructure and skills. We have countries, or we have areas that have low internet speeds, and over time, we've realized that business has moved from the big towns or from the big cities, and the MSMEs they're all located down to the villages. So there is still low internet speeds and low rate of internet penetration within some of the areas that we live in. But there is also shortage of careered or people who understand both supply chain logistics and data science. And I would want to pivot on this, where we have procurement professionals. Yes, we do have procurement professionals, but we still don't have a lot of professionals that have incorporated data science and AI technology into our procurement system, into our procurement processes. So it's important that we now start looking at AI and data science as part of the procurement profession. And I would encourage, even for us who are providing training, for the institutes that are providing training, there's a need to relook at the trainings that we are offering, the curriculums that we are offering, to include AI as part of one of the core subjects that is being offered for procurement professionals. So in terms of data governance gaps, I wanted to highlight two cases that happened in South Africa during the unrest and during the mudslides and floods. So in terms of of ShopRite. ShopRite had a very good system. Some level of AI that could have looked at the sales numbers. It could have looked at the warehousing numbers and see when do we have low stock, when do we need to restock, when do we need to reorder, how are our sales doing. However, the kind of system that they did have at that point did not go outside the warehouse. It did not go outside sales. So when there were unrest and the highways were blocked, then their AI could not have predicted that because the predictive models were not incorporated into the system at that point. So the logistics was kind of disrupted, and there was no way that they could have predicted this in upfront. So what happened is that there was total stockouts. There was need to enter in and manually try and address the logistic issues that came up. You had to either manually feed the intelligence into the system, but even then they had to use the manual system of phones and sending out vehicles or sending out human beings to be able to navigate the unrest and be able to deliver on time. Then we have Toyota also within South Africa, because we know it has Toyota's Durban plant has one of the global hub for Toyota Hilux models. So one of the things that happened during the floods again at the same time is that they had not, because Toyota uses a just-in-time model, they had not looked at the logistics part of it again. So when there were disruptions during the floods and the floods, they were not able to have goods come in and delivered to the factory on time. However, they also did not have tier 2 or tier 3 suppliers who would have been activated within a short time to be able to deliver. And that would have been probably suppliers based somewhere near South Africa, or around having separate hubs within South Africa or within outside Durban that could have helped them get their parts on time. So that cost them a loss of about 1.5 billion. But they did learn from that experience, and they have a build back better strategy where they digitize the local supplier network for future resilience. So instead of just having all the international suppliers in their strategy, in their AI strategy and in their AI mapping, they also did bring in local suppliers so that they would also be able to have that as a future backup in case there are any issues that happen that disrupt the logistics pipeline. We go to the next one. So strengthening data governance for AI readiness. The other example that I wanted to use, especially in health, because I have also a passion in health, and this is one of the examples that we were using as we were trying to feed in the AI models for the Caribbean to be able to predict and determine how then do we better support the health system, was the Zambian national health supply chain. So there was quite some fragmented data across the 3 Global Fund projects. And in some regions, they had stockouts because all that data was not being fed on time. So what Zambia has done is Zambia has developed a national health data governance framework that has mapped all the warehouses, and it has mapped all the clinical data into one system. And all the hubs that collect all this data have also been facilitated with the solar powered and connectivity, so that there is real-time data flow into the national center. This led to a 90% compliance with national data, and also it did reduce the reporting time. And also, there's a lot of visibility right now in Zambia in terms of their health supply chain systems, and they are able to see the inventory across the country. Most of our countries, I know, most of the African countries have developed a system, but I think as procurement persons, we need to be more deliberate in terms of using those systems and being the champions and advancing those systems. The next one. So I'm going to look again at procurement analytics and how do we apply the procurement analytics. So the spend analysis. So we have the AI-driven categorization of maverick spend to identify cost-saving opportunities. So what AI, some of the benefits of AI, or some of the benefits that AI could help us is being able to collate all the data as we procure and as we do our procurement on a regular basis. AI is able to aggregate all this data and give us an analysis of how we are spending, where we are spending, what are the suppliers, what is the lead time. So it looks at the spending versus the lead time. So AI is not only about spending, because ideally our traditional procurement, the way we were trained was that procurement is supposed to deliver savings. What has changed right now is that supply chain is not only a center for delivering cost savings, but it's a strategic center that feeds into the business and that feeds into the decisions that management make. So AI should be used not only for a spend analysis, but also to aggregate all the benefits that the procurement unit gets from strategic decisions and the strategic activities that they take in terms of supplier analysis, in terms of logistics and cost, in terms of freight. So when you aggregate all these, AI is able to give you a good view for making decisions. Then we have the supplier risk scoring. This just looks at, again, how do we look at our suppliers? How do we vet our suppliers? The COVID showed us that we cannot only rely on specific suppliers, or we cannot only rely on given regions, our traditional regions that we were used to. So it has really taught us to diversify our supplier base and to diversify the regions where we are sourcing from. So AI will be able to give us some of these tools and some of this information to be able to manage our supplier risk effectively. Then automated negotiations. I'm not sure how many of us have used the reverse auction platforms or the e-auctioning platforms. So these platforms mostly use AI bots to be able to handle procurement. And it's an open source. Most of them are open source, but we know that they are owned by persons who have built up technology and have also built up expertise in this. But using the automated negotiation platforms is also one of the benefits that we have gotten from AI. I remember that we had to procure laptops for school-going children in 2021 when I came into the Caribbean, and we went on an e-platform that there was an auction, a reverse auction. From that reverse auction, we were able to save the government of St. Lucia about 50% of the costs that we would have incurred if we had gone through our traditional bidding system. So it's important that, again, we appreciate that these bots, in as much as we still need the manual and the human side of things, we also have automated platforms that we could be able to use in terms of applications, and also to be able to give us analytics. So what we are saying here is procurement is shifting from a back office administrative function to a strategic value driver. So I'm going to look at IBM, Unilever, and one of the global markets. And IBM has proactively used AI. I'm not sure. I think if we have ICT procurement, people who have specialized in procurement of ICT materials, then you would be able to realize that IBM has some very good offers depending on the value and the quantity that you are going to procure. So normally they do not have a standard price for laptops or for their equipment. So it depends, it's custom built around what you want. So IBM has been able to use AI platforms to be able to match their suppliers with innovation projects and also to be able to customize the service and the goods that they offer to you at a price that you find very competitive. And that has given them quite some leverage in the market. So one of the results that they have done, one of the things that they have gotten is about 15 to 20% reduction in procurement costs. And for Unilever, they're also using the same. They're also using an AI platform to be able to match suppliers with projects. And remember, Unilever also sources from farmers. They not only source from major factories, they also source from farmers some of the products that they use in manufacturing. So with this, they have incorporated AI to be able to identify, and not only identify, but also to be able to trace the source of their products, of their raw materials, which has given them about 30% improvement in demand forecasting. Global markets, I'm looking at West Africa. The cocoa is one of the areas that has been having an interesting value chain. And we all pray we all hope that as procurement professionals that we can see this value chain developed in terms of in terms of complying to data transparency and being able to trace a cocoa bean right from the farmer to the factory. So whatever cocoa bean is used to make your chocolate, there has to be a traceability that can take it back to a farmer. So these are some of the ways that procurement can support and can be involved in analytics and applications through AI. Audit and donor compliance. Donors and financiers are demanding radical transparency, and AI makes the impossible audit possible. So we are used to our traditional paper audit where you have to put all your paper together in a file and bind them and take it to an auditor to have a look at it. But with AI, we now have an easier way of complying to audit requirements, because when you look at most of your donors, they already have a set of requirements that you need to fulfill, a set of procedures or requirements that you need to fulfill. And you always know that you need to be audit ready. So one of the things that we could use AI to, and I'm encouraging us to start using, is that AI will be able to give you real-time accountability so that you're able to you're able to report, your processes are auditable on the go. We have also noticed that most donors are now moving towards regular audits. And this is just to be able to manage their risk better instead of piling risks for the end of the year. Then they are able to identify risks maybe in a quarter, every quarter, or every 6 months, and then you're able to modify and change. So AI is able to help us with real-time accountability. And again, what I said in terms of cocoa, there's the traceability for cocoa, and also there's traceability for the last mile in terms of health. We are able to trace medicines right from the client. When a patient complains that the medicine has problems or they had a negative reaction, we should be able to trace this particular tablet right from the clinic where it was issued to the warehouse where it landed before it went to the clinic. From the port that it passed, we need to know how many hours it spent. For example, for us in the Caribbean, our medicines normally pass through Miami, or they must pass through Panama. So we are able to know that in Miami, what was the temperature in Miami? Could it have been affected there? Then if we find that it's not at the hub, then we trace it back to the airplane that carried it. We can trace it back to the warehouse, to the manufacturer. The manufacturer can then trace it to where they got their ingredients. So AI is able to support, is able to help us in traceability. So anomaly detection, AI flags suspicious in terms of so AI are able to flag out double billing or inventory leakage real time rather than later. Because then when you have an AI, it means it's working, it's a bot that you have customized to be able to work all around 24 hours a day. So as you move your inventory, as you prepare your documentations and move your inventory, it's able to report to you and you're able to rectify some of those mistakes as you go along. We also have natural language processing which scans thousands of donor grant and agreements to ensure procurement matches specific regulations. So when you're dealing especially with public procurement and when you're dealing with multiple donors, then it means that you may have one grant, you may have one project that's being funded by different donors who have different regulations. For example, the EU, the US government, probably UK government, FCDO, all their rules they almost are similar, but there's always one or two areas that are unique to their countries and to their regulations because they're all governed by their constitution. So with AI, you're able to put all these documents, all these donor fund regulations and grant agreements into one portal, and then you're able to match the specific and you're able also to highlight what is it that's different, what is it that the US government wants that the UK government does not want, and then you're able to comply with that. So for vaccine distribution, so I'm just going to go through an example for vaccine network, and this is mostly done by UNICEF, and I know that the UN bodies are also very good, very, very high in using innovation and AI. So one of the things that we are doing is in terms of vaccine distribution, there are AI-powered cold chain monitoring systems and softwares that have been developed that are able to monitor vaccines right from production up to the last mile. Sorry. This has created safety along the vaccine chain, but also safety to the patients, because this has reduced manual compliance and documentation and by thousands of hours annually and significantly lower temperature excursions. When you look at the cold chains, there is always a temperature machine or a thermometer that is attached to each and every shipment. This thermometer reports in real time. So it will tell you whether there's a spike in the temperature, whether there's a fall in the temperature, and if there's anything that would have happened that require intervention, so that by the time the vaccine reaches the patient, it's of the right temperature and it's of the right mixture. So what most of the vaccine logistics industry has done is that they have fully incorporated AI. So right now, there are no vaccines that are being shipped that are not traceable, which is a good thing. However, as procurement persons, then we need to get involved in this system, because what I see is that we leave this to the warehouse. As a buyer, I would assume that that's the domain of the warehouse person, or it is the domain of the pharmacy. As procurement persons, we need to be able to feed into this process and into this program, because then it also feeds into our forecasting, it feeds into our lead times, and it feeds into the advisory that we are giving the users or the requesters within our organizations. Next. So how do we manage AI bias and ethical compliance? So some of the sources of bias, I think the first two speakers spoke about them, so I will not belabor that very much. But again, it will say the algorithms that are trained on Western logistics data. And also we have historical data bias. If past procurement favored urban centers over rural ones, if they favor the one region to the other, then that inequality persists. And again, this is where part of the mitigation strategy is involving ourselves. We as the procurement persons, we need to be able to build that capacity to be able to involve ourselves in that human loop. Yeah, we need to involve ourselves in that human loop so that we feed into the AI algorithm. One of the things that I've been doing in the past 3 or 4 years together with World Bank and CDB is be able to feed into the Caribbean algorithm the uniqueness and the uniqueness and the contextual procurement and procurement needs and procurement data of the region so that we are able to develop an AI algorithm that understands what the Caribbean is doing. The other thing that I did, I think, with AU was also to try and contextualize some of the data to be able to read what is unique in Africa. So I want to belabor that again and say that procurement experts, we need to upskill in terms of AI so that we can teach these models, we can input into the models so that they can be able to give us the results that we want. The next one. So ethical sourcing in agriculture. I wanted to just use this and say just to bring across the point on how AI can be able to help us with ethical sourcing. And again, I know that as procurement professionals, when it comes to some of these areas of specialization, agriculture and health, we normally do default to the persons who have studied agriculture and health. But again, this conversation around AI brings to the fore the need for us to be able to adapt, to be adaptable, to be able to scale up, and to be able to think beyond our comfort zone, which is just buying and making decisions around procurement, but to be able to understand how the other areas that that we do support as procurement operate. So for this slide, it wasn't more of explaining the EU Green Deals, but it was more about highlighting to the procurement professions that yes, there are AI programs that are also working into traceability. So as you procure, you need to be aware that at some point you may be called upon, or there may be need for you to be able to trace back what you procured from the manufacturer, and make sure that you are able to articulate to the manufacturer why the manufacturer needs to be able to trace their raw materials down up to the farmer or to the person who they sourced the raw materials from. So this is just for us to be able to understand how those biases occur, because when you're seated, for example, in Nairobi, you may feed an algorithm into AI that provides traceability, a city context traceability, forgetting that whatever you bought, for example, if it's a box of milk, you forget that what you bought, the box of milk you bought came from a farmer right outside the city. So that's where ethical sourcing, AI and procurement, ethical sourcing, AI and procurement combine and collide. So as professionals, we need to be aware of the biases and the ethical compliance that we need. So my final question to all the participants, is your data pipeline clean enough to be trusted? And is your team empowered enough to say no to a biased algorithm? I'm hoping that you can answer, you can go and review, have a conversation with the organization, have a conversation as a region, have a conversation as a body of procurement so that we can be able to we can be able to look at our data pipeline. We must be very active in giving AI the data that it needs so that we all feed into AI. IT professionals have used AI very well, and they have fed AI into, they have fed the information that they want into AI for them to be able to develop a website. Right now, I'm not an IT person, but I'm able to go into AI, into the bots, and be able to develop a website. That does not make me an an IT profession, but it just tells me that the IT persons have really worked to make sure that AI speaks to their profession and speaks to them. So what I'm saying again is we absolutely need to build an African-centric AI. However, the goal is not to build a perfect AI because we will never build a perfect AI. Situation changes, emergencies happen, context change. So we need to be able to build a governed AI where we are able to it's ethical and it's able to respond to our needs. Then success in the African supply chain will depend on our ability to clean our data pipelines and upskill our workforce to act as the ultimate ethical filter. Again, I repeat, as procurement persons, we will have to upskill our workforce, we will have to upskill ourselves so that we are able to work and thrive within this AI generation. So I will stop there and give it back to you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Rosalind. This was powerful. It was such an insightful presentation. I tried to make some notes, but I realized I won't do justice, to the presentation. Please give Rosalind a round of applause. Colleagues, you broke the topic down to the simplest form. I mean, we are all excited. We know we want to go back to our environment and implement this. And the questions that you're leaving us with, is our data pipeline clean? Can it be trusted? And I think the key message across coming from all the speakers is upskill. We have to upskill. We can't leave it to ICT to build the algorithm. We can't leave it to the foreign countries to build the algorithms. For us, we have to upskill and have the capability to build these things ourselves. I mean, Rosalind just said she is able to build a website on her own and she's not ICT. So I hope you are as challenged and excited as I am. And I saw on the chat that most people were asking for presentations. Yes, the presentations will be shared and the recordings will also be shared. I saw one of the colleagues saying they want to listen to this over and over again. I am with you. I also will do the same because there are some very good points, to take and learnings to take from this. So I see the questions raised on the chat have been answered. I saw Dr. Wright answered some of the questions. I'm not seeing any outstanding questions here on the chat. I'm just browsing through it one last time, and I saw there was a good summary as well. Let me just go up again from Dr. Manga. Thank you very much for those comments, and I saw that your question again towards the end was answered. Okay, colleagues, on behalf of ISCA, I want to thank our panelists once more, Dr. Wright, Dr. Madu, and Rosalind. And I think I've already shared my sentiments on how I will go back to these presentations along with my colleagues and other professionals on the call. We're going to use this as our reference, as we begin to be delivering collaborate in implementing, AI in our environment and taking this forward. So thank you very much. And I think for me, my job is done here.